Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Peter Anderson. He is going to be an exclusive character coming into the Mythic Market. He will be going in on the refresh. If you want more information on the Mythic Market refresh, you can see the link in the top right hand corner. It gives you all the information, all the characters that are going to be added and the changes and so on and so forth. But Peter Anderson is pretty much the highlight as an exclusive character. Just like Wangfa, it's going to be the only place where you can actually obtain this character, but you will be able to obtain him over multiple refreshes of that Mythic Market if required. Now, we've had a Pete Anderson in the game before, and my guess is this character is called Peter Anderson just to differentiate him from that character, basically. A lot of the time when we have a second character come in, they're like a character in Holiday Heroes, so they're generally associated with that holiday, so generally the name is a little bit different. And of course we have characters like Off-Duty Rick, Off-Duty Shane, that sort of thing. But Peter Anderson is going to be a bit more formal, but it's going to be the first Gold Mythic version of this character. We'll look at his stats on the left hand side. We can see at 1,440, limit break 3, completely maxed out. He has got 29,386 attack, 21,653 defense, and 26,293 HP. He is an alert character, of course, holding that pistol. He is a support character and that support role. He is, of course, a mythic character, and he's going to be joining the Alexandria Allegiance, and I think his Silver Mythic is also part of that Allegiance as well. Now, first up, we're going to look at his Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Concussion Tactics. It's a 66 AP cost rush. Deal 800% damage to an enemy. 2 other enemies get confused for 2 turns. So, pretty basic rush. The first half just deals damage. It cannot crit, it cannot proc weapons, so there's no offensive proc weapons, so he can't take advantage of his own third slot, but he also can't be stunned, for instance, or absolute defended. So this is just pure damage. Works quite a lot like the Gentleman or Titan in terms of how their damage output goes with their rush. Now the second half it is quite interesting, especially considering he's not a control character. It has actually pretty significant control on here. 2 other enemies get confused for 2 turns. I like this quite a lot in terms of it being the other enemies, and because generally speaking when you're doing an 800% hit against a character, whether you take them out or not, that's generally the characters you want to take out. So if they are left alive with like 100 HP, which can be very frustrating if that's one of the targets that can be confused, it's not going to be an issue. Someone else can come in and finish that character off, and it will still be 2 other enemies that got confused. So very nice once Peter Anderson gets this rush off. If he's surrounded by the right characters, he should be able to get pretty decent attack stat, and this will hit a lot harder for that. Okay, so here we are on the rush turn of Pete, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus Garrett, who I shouldn't be able to take out here, but you never know. But primarily I want to see if he doesn't take him out, just to show you that 2 other characters do in fact get hit with the confuse. The rush is going to come in, it cannot crit, it will just be flat damage, pretty decent. Obviously this can be amplified up a bit more, and you can see the characters that got confused will be Maggie in the middle and Dr. Stevens. So that's how the confuse works. So if I come in now and finish him off with another character, it's not going to be like, oh damn, I just basically took out someone who had a 2-turn confuse, and it's just frustrating. So the confuse is still going to be very potent in that case. So I kind of see this character as someone who can either set up the actual takedown on an enemy, or even just be the character that finishes them off. It doesn't really matter either way. Generally speaking, you'd probably want to try and get the last hit with someone who actually is going to get bonuses, be it like follow-up, decap, that sort of thing. But either way, Pete Anderson is going to be pretty decent when it comes to the confused side of things. The damage is going to be based on, like I say, how you set up that team. If we look at the upgrades, you can see at grade 2, you can see the first one is an actual upgrade where 1 other enemy gets confused for 2 turns. So initially it is only going to be a 1 target confuse. At grade 4 it gets 400% damage added on. So initially it's only going to be a 400% hit, and that's actually a massive upgrade, but it's going to come in at grade 4, so it's not too hard to come by. Limit break 1 is going to be reasonably important because it goes to 2 targets that get confused for 2 turns. And in the LB3 the AP cost gets reduced to 66, so initially it is actually really slow at 75 AP, and that is not very good at all. But because he is going to be in the Mythic Market, it's going to be very accessible. If you have the tokens, once the refresh comes in, you can just buy all 5 copies instantly and job done. So I think this rush is just kind of okay. It is going to be adding bits and pieces, a bit of damage, a bit of control. It's going to be nice. It's not, you know, spectacular, but it definitely isn't terrible. If you team him up with the right characters, however, there are characters that can take advantage of characters have debilitating status effects. And I will say that Pete here does actually add quite a few debilitating statuses in the game. It isn't just Confused, there are other things. So teammates of Pete who have, let's say, Cutthroat or Cutthroat 2 are going to get big damage bonuses because of that quite consistently. Now next up is going to be the signature move, and it is called Recuperate. It is initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. Make 2 attacks against an enemy for 250% damage, 500% total. This character recovers from 2 penalties. So it is going to be slightly different than how the rush works, where this now can crit. So it is going to take advantage of things like 1535s. It is going to take advantage of just general crit rating. But a 500% damage hit on turn 1 is actually not too bad at all. If it does actually take out a target, then obviously it will go on to a second target with the second hit. This isn't actually too bad. And the fact that he recovers from 2 penalties, this can be things as basic as like Infection. And there are characters out there that just do random Infection off their turn 1 signature move. You can save this until turn 2. It's completely up to you how you want to roll around with this. It's actually a really nice signature move, I think, just in terms of like keeping Pete alive, but actually doing reasonably significant damage. And it will take advantage of weapon effects this time around in terms of doing extra damage based on that 3rd slot. Like I say, it can crit, but of course you can, you know, get controlled by weapons and so on and so forth as well. However, it would actually kind of be interesting to know if I got stunned while I did this attack, would the cleanse then remove the stun? Is it like a kind of head cracker within the signature move? I'll try and test that out. So I thought a pretty decent way to test this out would be against someone like Rosie, because she has a taunt weapon, and I could basically see if he could cleanse the weapon effect in the same, you know, attack. If he did attack the weapon and it procced, would he cleanse it afterwards? Now I have got a weapon that's going to take advantage of the fact that he is going to be doing actual like basic attacks here. He can potentially crit these as well. We're just going to see the order of operations. We'll see if the taunt comes in first of all. The taunt is going to come in. And did he cleanse the taunt? He did. So that is actually pretty interesting. So he's going to be cleansing whatever he signature moves against, be it a taunt weapon like Rosie's, be it stun on defense, be it any sort of controlling weapon. That actually isn't too bad at all. However, it is worth noting that if he already had 2 negative status effects on him, and he would to recover from 2 but add another one, it would be completely RNG which 2 of those 3 he would recover from. So let's say he had Infection and heal reduction, and then he got taunted in that sort of scenario, it would be 2 of those 3 would just randomly get healed. Obviously you'd probably want the taunt and the Infection in that case, but it's completely RNG. If we look at the upgrades on the signature move, we can see at grade 3 it gets +1 attack. So initially it's just a single target, but grade 3 again, not very hard to come by at all. Grade 5 it gets -1 to starting cooldown, so it goes from a 2-turn starting cooldown down to a 1-turn starting cooldown, so you could be doing it straight away at the beginning of a fight if you want to. And then at limit break 2 it gets an upgrade where this character recovers from the 2 penalties. So originally it's just going to be a damage dealing signature move, but the damage does actually seem to be decent. But the fact that he's going to be cleansing himself of whatever he's got on him, or potentially what he gains in the actual attacks itself, I actually think is actually a nice little combo. And like I said, you can get reasonably good damage out from this. 500% is no joke. It can crit. You saw it utilizing weapon procs, and it did pretty decent damage there just in the testing. So considering he is not a damage dealer, he is a cunning character, it means that the weapons are going to proc less often than not anyway, but if they do, he's going to cleanse it and whatever he's got on him already. So like I say, not too bad a signature move overall, but let's see what his passives are going to add to that rush and the signature move. And here they are. These are his passives. This is going to be where his mythic abilities are going to come in. He is, of course, a support character, so he has cunning. He's 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects. This includes walkers as well. And there are a lot of 60% weapons out there now, so he basically brings those down to 30% chance to proc instead of being 60% chance to proc. If people have just a normal better chance, they're effectively like a 5% chance to proc, so he's kind of immune almost in that case. The next passive is called Full of Energy. At the start of each wave, 100% chance this character gets 70% exhaust resistance for 3 turns. So this is kind of hit and miss. It's going to help with parts of his kit, which we'll look into in a second, but because it's a 70% exhaust resistance, there are exhaust characters out there, but they also have reductions already in place. So this will get reduced down to like 30%. I don't think this would have been too crazy as a single person, like a single target, just to give himself 100% resist, because again, it will just get reduced down to 60%, which is, you know, more often than not he will resist it, but he could still actually get hit. But it's still decent. I think it's the first real exhaust resist to come in naturally on a character, and it's one of the resists that you don't really want to put on a character, especially on an attack team. You've got so many other things to deal with. But don't forget, he could potentially just cleanse the exhaust if he gets it and he doesn't resist it with that signature move. So there's that to think about. The next one is called Debilitate. When this character performs a critical hit, 100% chance an enemy that's not the target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns. This is actually pretty crazy. What I'll do is I'll test out if it actually works with his signature move, because he does do 2 hits. I'll try and get him to crit twice to see if he actually does it twice, because then potentially his signature move turns into effectively like, it could be like a 2 characters get stunned for 2 turns, or 2 characters get confused for 2 turns. But this also includes normalize, I would think. The next one is going to be medical knowledge. At the start of each wave, 100% chance 2 enemies with the medic roll get taunt for 2 turns. This is actually really good, and this is what I was saying, the added status effects that are going to come in from Pete. He could potentially, off of turn 1, if both the signature move crits do actually do debilitating status effects, he could control up to 4 characters because of that taunt. But then again, those debilitating status effects could land on the same characters that are already taunted. A bit of RNG there, but the potential is pretty decent. Okay, so as you can see, we have started the fight, and 2 of the 3 medics are going to be taunted. It will be completely RNG which ones get taunted. There are a bunch of medics out there right now, and I don't necessarily think taunt resist is as used on defense teams. Confuse resist, impair resist, and stun resist are pretty big. I think taunt resist is more for attack teams, so this can actually be pretty powerful. I've got a very crit based weapon on Pete. We're going to see if he can hit 2 crits on that signature move. We'll do the signature move here. First crit comes in, and then the second crit. Now let's just look at the controls, and it did happen twice. You can see that Maggie is confused and dazed. It is going to be completely RNG. That isn't necessarily going to be that helpful. If she's confused, the dazed actually doesn't do anything because she can't do her signature move. But let's say somehow she got focused, she'd obviously be able to bypass that. No signature move for her. So it's going to be like pretty decent. And that I like that, actually. I like that. Look at the control just from Pete off of turn 1. 2 characters taunted, another one confused. It could potentially have been more. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just test this a little bit and see if anyone just randomly gets normalized. Okay. As you can see, not only did someone get normalized, we actually had a double normalize happen off of turn 1. So this is actually pretty interesting. There is obviously some randomness to this, but if he's not your only source of a normalize and it's just a bonus, it actually could be pretty decent. It could be pretty decent. You can see I've got 2 characters taunted, 2 characters normalized. One of the characters normalized is really beneficial because if I take them out, they're not going to come back due to their specialist skill. I like this a lot indeed. I actually like this a lot. And generally speaking, debilitating status effects are always decent. They're all pretty good. They're all going to stop a character from doing something in their kit. You know, that's what it's about. That's what debilitating statuses means. It stops you from being able to actually do something that you would otherwise be able to do. It doesn't like reduce the effect of it like attack down or anything like that. So nothing like that is going to come in. If we look at the upgrades, you can see at grade 1, he gets the first half of full energy. That's a 50% chance to get the 70% exhaust resist. At grade 2, he gets the first half of cunning. At grade 3, he gets the second half of full of energy, and that's going to be a 100% chance to get the 70% exhaust resist. At grade 4, he's going to get the first half of debilitate when he hits a crit. There's a 50% chance an enemy that's not the target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns. And at grade 5, he gets the first half of medical knowledge. At the start of each wave, 50% chance 2 enemies with the medic roll get taunt for 2 turns. So up to grade 5, there is quite heavy RNG that the best parts of this are going to work, particularly like medical knowledge and debilitate. These 2 are the really important ones, but you can obviously get these maxed out through the limit breaks, and like I said, because he's in the Mythic Market, it won't be like weeks and months until you can get this character, unless you just don't have any tokens at the moment. If you're sitting on tokens, you're gold. You can see at limit break 1, he gets the second half of cunning, which is going to stack with the first half of course. At limit break 2, he gets the second half of debilitate, where it's going to be 100% chance an enemy that is not the target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns if he hits a crit. And at Limit Break 3, he gets the second half of Medical Knowledge, where it goes up to 100% chance 2 enemies with the medic roll get taunt for 2 turns. So obviously the last 2 limit breaks are going to be very important to get the best out of this guy's passive, and they do massively amplify his signature move. Debilitate is going to make his signature move actually really good. Now his rush, it is maybe a bit of a shame that it cannot hit a crit, even if it was just a single target crit, kind of like, I want to say, Rosita. I think it would have maybe been better just so he could get that debilitating status effect randomly occur. But it is pretty interesting. It is worth noting that the way the Debilitate works, it doesn't do the debilitating status effect on the target. So if you wanted to try and get that normalized luck in, you wouldn't actually focus the one you wanted to normalize. You'd have to hit someone else. And do be aware that if you did it on a tank, there is of course a 40% chance they would resist the crit, so that would stop this from happening. I think these passives are actually pretty good for a support character. Now where one of those passives is going to come in quite useful, and that's going to be the Exhaust Resist, is going to be because of his specialist skill. It's called Manic. Every turn, if this character is at or below 75% HP, this character gains 50% AP at the start of their turn. This is quite a fun specialist skill. There are characters in the past that have been really good. I believe Tyrese, even in the Mythic era, has this specialist skill, right? And so did the OG character Charlie. Now the way Charlie worked is he had a weapon that actually worked with this, and I was really hoping when I saw that specialist skill it's going to be the same for Peter, but he hasn't got an attached weapon. But you never know, there could be a weapon that comes out because he has got one sort of in his hands that's going to work with Peter Anderson, and it's like above 75% HP, something else happens. You know, that would actually be really cool, especially if it's in that 3rd slot, because he can't really take full advantage of that 3rd slot. We'll have to wait and see what happens though. But I think this is actually quite a fun specialist skill, especially if it's built correctly into the kit. I wouldn't necessarily say Pete Anderson's kit as it stands really takes advantage of Manic that much. He doesn't deal damage to himself. He doesn't have the like secondary potential boosts. But he could effectively have no specialist skill the entire fight if he does not get targeted at all. So there is of course downsides to that. And then obviously if any healing comes in, then it's going to hit him above the threshold, and he's obviously going to be in trouble there. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side with Pete's art, his weapon does look really nice. It's a nice-looking pistol, but he does not have an attached weapon. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, if anything at all. But in the meantime, you can just use like flat attack. You can try and get some boost to his damage on that 3rd slot, just based on the fact that it is going to be doing multi-hits. It really depends on how you want to build this character, but I think building him around his signature move seems to be this, you know, pretty decent move. So that's going to be Gold Mythic Peter Anderson, and like I said, he is going to be a character going into the Mythic Market upon the refresh. Available, all 5 copies, day 1 if you have the tokens, or you can progressively get those tokens over time. It's completely up to you. You can buy tokens in the Bit store, you can buy tokens in the League store, and you know, I think some of those reset quite recently as well. So they're available if you don't have enough. And I think Pete Anderson is pretty decent. I think he's pretty decent. He's not going to be like some world-beating damage dealer, but I don't think he's meant to be. But what he is bringing to the table is pretty good. He's bringing very nice control potential. You know, if that, like I got really lucky. That was the first actual attempt as well. I just attempted it and I got double normalized. So it is possible, but it will be very rare to get double normalized. I think there are like 6, maybe 7 debilitating status effects. So, you know, it's not the greatest chance. But if it happens, it's such a sweet bonus. It'll be such a sweet bonus. So, like I say, teaming him up with another normalized character seems like a good plan. But do tell me your thoughts on Gold Mythic Peter Anderson. What do you think of his kit? Will you be picking him up from the Mythic Market? Let me know in the comments down below. That is the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.